Okay, welcome to the fifth webinar from Astropreneurs. So this time we will put a focus on the space data and what we actually can do with space data. For the ones who are attended for the first time, so Astropreneurs is a program supported by the European Commission, and we strive to support 150 startups by giving them 50 hours of mentoring. But besides supporting them, we also want to create more awareness. So therefore, we organize webinars, podcasts, and videos in order to boost up the business life and to give them insights on what the impact can be of space data and other technologies. So before this webinar, we have held the focus already on the different space-related programs. We have put the focus on the technology transfer and how the network works with the innovation partners. We have put the focus on the different space sectors to give a brief and broad introduction on how the system of space has been developed. And today I'm really happy to actually introduce you to really big brains within the Earth observation. So first of all, we will work in three clusters. So the first speaker is Olivier Ropiton from France. He is working at Aerospace Valley, and he will give you a global overview about Earth observation. Then next to me, we have my beloved colleague, Nicolas Helsen. He works for Verhaar, but as well for Belgium, and he is the lead in the business in the Copernicus Incubation program Europe. And then we will have a case study, namely Daniel Di Vici. I'm sorry, I hope I pronounced it correctly. So he's a co-founder of Saturnalia, located in Italy, and who was also a winner of the Copernicus Incubation. So I'm really happy to have you all here, and I'm pleased to give the words to Olivier Ropiton.
Okay, thank you, Luisa. We could begin with the first slide. Okay. So a few words of introduction about Aerospace Valley. It's a French competitiveness cluster, geographically settled in two regions of southwest of France, Occitania and New Aquitaine, birthplace of aeronautics in France. We focused on three industrial sectors, aeronautic, of course, but also space and I let the French word for drones. In English is UFO, unmanned flying objects. Aerospace Valley is about 800 members, large firm, but also small and medium enterprise, but also R&D lab and so on. Booster Nova. So Booster Nova is a French initiative labeled by French Ministry of Research. Booster Nova is a community of various players which aim at is stimulating the creation of innovative services, space-related, of course, using both space data and digital platforms, and addressing market as new energy, blue growth, agriculture, or smart city. And concretely, we often organize a meetup and thematic conference to discover the specific issue of such market, innovation clubs to brainstorm and to foster new idea, and challenges to develop a proof of concept. As you can perhaps read, our motto is dream it, make it, and boost it, to accompany each step of new businesses creation. So perhaps some people are recognizing a famous astronomer, mathematician, and physician who lived around the year 1500. He burst in what is today called Poland, but he was also teaching in Italy, in the north of Italy, in Padova, and is a father of heliocentrism. Okay, you all have recognized Nicolas Copernicus, and it's also this name that the European community choose to label this space program. Just a few words about economics of this program, Copernicus. The number you see on the slide are a bit old. There's a new, a lot more recent economic studies, but the ratio are quite the same. The European community hold about 7 to 8 billion of euro in investment to launch a set of new satellites, Sentinel satellite. We will see it in the next few slides, and that is what we call the upstream. And the downstream is the revenue of the usage of such data, and it's currently about, depending on the economics, but between 18 and 21 billions. So you can also see different market in which the data are used, mainly in agriculture field, as you can see, but also fish and so on. Just to mention the different Copernicus steps and the different programs, you have Copernicus Master, hackathons, accelerator in the first step. Then the program, the Copernicus program, also accompany about 50 startups in the accelerator center, and then 20 and choose 20 startups and select 20 startups to have a special accompaniment team in the incubator. But Daniel will have a testimony on this. Yes, this figure is just to mention the Copernicus challenge. Each year, the European Commission published different challenge with different partners. So this year, this was with ESA, DLR, and so on, as you can see. For people acting as a new startup or in different sector, it could be really interesting. Some prizes are cash prize. Others are giving some data voucher and so on. So depending on your sector and your experience, it could be interesting to stay tuned to address the different challenge. General, these challenges are to be addressed in the first semester. The publication date to give your solution or your proof of concept on the challenge is usually on the end of June. So for this year, it's too late, but stay tuned. It will surely take place also next year. So, the satellite market. Just to be certain, I assume that people are most familiar with trucks and satellite, and I will compare them. Imagine a satellite as a truck, and you're certainly more familiar with. Satellite has two-part tracks. The first part is a tractor which is in charge of the propulsion to cross the right orbital trajectory and so on. And the second part is a trailer with its payload embedding the different instruments in charge of the scientific mission or observation, monitoring, different type of sensor. And this is exactly what is the Copernicus program. And the figure and the number are in the right part of the slide. Not issue from any economic studies, but just from my mind. But it's the actual trends. As you can see, there is a real booming of the launch of a new Earth observation satellite. And by the way, of the amount of data collected by such satellites. For the Copernicus program, there are several satellites. So you can see with different color, the different satellites. For those who want to have a more detailed technical description of the different sensor in each satellite, I put a link here, and you can directly go to the Copernicus website with the page corresponding to discover your satellite and get the exact detail what in the sensor and what you can do with. But just in a few words, the first mission of Sentinel is for Satellite 1 with 1R and 1B. It's radar imaging. The radar is really efficient because it can give images through the cloud. Even if it's a cloudy weather, the image are, you can get the information through the cloud. The Sentinel-2 mission is an optical device mission. So it's really useful in for cover vegetation, for example. And you can see that in both cases, it's a green, and you can use that in cooperation with in situ data for long perspective, for example. All those satellites are giving space data, but the Copernicus program also provides in situ data with sensor dedicated to those thematics, which are in situ with different sensors located on Earth. So Sentinel-1, Sentinel-2, Sentinel-3 is a multi-instrument giving many optical information in different bands. And the 5P Sentinel is more dedicated to climate information. So for example, it will give you many information on NO2 and globally NOx, but also different gas. The next few missions of 5 and 4 and 6 are programming in the next few years. They will give data related to monitoring atmospheric, but also meteo operation, METOP for weather climate information, and this one, the 6, will give more accurate and more precise information on radar altimeter. So, yes. How to get, the space truck, the satellites, will give will provide a huge amount of data, but how to get those data? You have several platforms. The first I will present you is RUS for Research and User Support. This is a platform provided by ESA, mostly for research purpose, but also available for each European citizen. In a commercial and private organization purpose, the Space Commission provide the DIAS for Data Information Analysis System. So they enroll 5 consortium, SOBLU, CRODIAS, Mundi, UNDA, and the last one is WICO, which is more climate-oriented DIAS. Those DIAS are providing the way to easily get the space data and the satellite images. So you can retrieve the website, the link to the different website. 5 consortium, Mundi, SOBLU. As I'm French and Toulousian, we have most contact with SOBLU and Mundi because they're all French and Toulousian, but CRODIAS and UNDA also provide the same set of data. So what do the DIAS provide? The main functions they address are, of course, providing the different Sentinel mission data. So in a few hours or days, but many hours after the data are available, the data are available a few hours after the satellite provide the different information. So the second main function is, of course, providing a cloud access and a cloud resource. So you can now easily download the different images, but also add a computational resource to combine data to create new services. Each of the different DIAS offer also a user support to help the startup to create their new services, combining a different set of spatial data. And you can, with this, combining space data, but also in situ data, as I previously mentioned. But you can also, if you have your own data, load those data in your private space, providing in the cloud. And add your own algorithm, transform your raw data into smart data, and providing a new economic services and new innovative services that you can provide in their marketplace, and then sell your new services directly through the marketplace of each different DIAS. So combining the cloud use, the in situ or IoT or whatever data you can imagine, you can then create your own services, innovative services, and create your new business. As the marketing told us, sky has no limit, but we said yes has no limit, and space has no limit. The technology is now not a problem, and you can easily create your own services. The only limit is your imagination. So it will take for you a world of opportunity to get a new business. And I will close with this slide for Aerospace Valley. It's more local slide. I could end now and let you, Louisa, to continue.
Yes, thank you very much, Olivier. I think now we understand the ecosystem of Copernicus even better. Now we understand the different sentinels that each has their own focus, the different fields where you can apply Earth observation towards, the numbers that are increasing, and the many opportunities that can be reached by Earth observation. So quite challenging and interesting. I would like now to give the word to my colleague, Nicolas, and he will put a focus on the Copernicus Incubation. So as you have seen in Olivier's slide deck, he had an overview of the different programs, and the most program at the right, it was Copernicus Incubation. So let's now put a focus on this particular program. So please, Nicolas, continue.
Thank you, Louisa. So hi, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to present Copernicus Incubation. I'm going to dive right in. Yes, there you go. So what I'll try and do is give a brief introduction of the Copernicus Incubation program. Now, of course, as Olivier has explained, the Sentinel fleet of satellites offers a lot of opportunities to develop services, commercial services in Europe and abroad. And so what the Copernicus Incubation program is trying to do is to support entrepreneurs or teams of entrepreneurs and startups in using Copernicus data to develop their own services or applications. And we do this by offering a grant of 50,000 euros to boost the startups that come into our program. So there's a variety of application areas. So as Olivier said, there's mostly agriculture, fishing, but of course there's many different markets that can be targeted. You can see some examples here from retail, construction, smart cities, etc. An example we sometimes use is that of stock market value prediction. So by using Earth observation to count the amount of cars in parking lots, you can actually predict how well certain businesses are doing, so which is quite an interesting example. As for the preconditions for the startups that want to apply to the incubation program, so your service obviously needs to include the use of Copernicus data. We're looking for commercially promising businesses, and there needs to be potential to export your application to other countries. So as I mentioned, what we offer is 50,000 euros. But there is a co-funding requirement, which means that at least 15%, so around 8,000 euros, needs to be brought in by the startup into the application. So the maximum duration of the incubation is 1 year, and we offer half of the grant, so 25K, upfront. And the lead time to get the support is usually a month after the application deadline. So it's quite quick. The startup has to be based in the EU. Norway or Iceland are also included in this, but not Switzerland, of course. And the entity can only have a maximum of 5 years of operational history, which is also quite important. This is at the moment that you send the application, that the company can only be 5 years old. And what's also important is that every application has to be joined with a support program. So this means that the Copernicus Incubation Program is not an incubator per se, but what it does is it supports startups that are already incubated or accelerated by a support program. So your support program has to fill in a one-pager explaining why they are supporting you and why you would make a good fit for the incubation program. And the 50,000 euros from Copernicus Incubation are actually to boost you within your own incubator. So this is why you have to apply with them. The next deadline is in almost exactly 1 month, on the 25th of October. You can see here the several deadlines that we have. We still have a few in 2020, three rounds still in 2020, but the next one will be in 1 month. If you intend to apply, do make sure to register on time, because you need to make an account, and you will then have the opportunity to upload your files to a shared folder. The ideal applicant that we're trying to look for is, of course, those that use Copernicus data and services, have significant commercial opportunity, a strong team, and we're also looking, this is quite important, at the expertise of the partnering incubation. So we ask the incubator to provide a brochure or a flyer of the services that they offer to their startups, because it's also an indicator of how successful we think the startup might become. So all of these things are quite important. Also, make sure to have a good balance between technical profiles and business profiles within the startup or within your team. The application procedure at the moment of the deadline on the 25th, once you submit your proposal, for 2 weeks, these will be evaluated by experts, and there will be a first screening to see who is chosen to be a finalist at the live interviews. At that point, you will be contacted. If you are invited to go to the live interviews, we will have a pitching day where all of the interviews will take place with experts, where you will have to convince our panel of experts. And usually there is around 14 applicants that go to the live interviews, and out of those we select 7, 8, it depends, that make it through to receive the 50,000 euros. And we select around 20 startups per year to receive the 50,000 euros. So the startups that are in scope, a team of entrepreneurs of 2 complementary profiles is also eligible. So this means that it's okay if you're just a team with an idea and you don't yet have a company. However, if you win and you want to receive the K grant, you do have to register a commercial entity. So we cannot sign a contract with individuals. You have to register a commercial entity if you win. And of course, legally established startups or spin-outs, all of that is fine. Do keep in mind the maximum 5 years of legal registration, and the types of support programs. These can be incubators or accelerators. These can be an ISA-BIC, for instance, but it cannot be the Copernicus accelerator. So it cannot be from within our same program. The support program itself cannot be from the accelerator of Copernicus, which is also important to know. But for instance, it could also be a consulting office, because there is a variety of different business support offices. It could also be a consulting office that offers business support services and that has a contract with you to offer this. But all of these support programs are evaluated on a case-by-case basis. So some of the achievements that we've had over the past 2 years, up until now, we've already had 37 companies that we've contracted. We've looked at some of the finalists after 1 year of incubation, and the average increase in their employees, their FTEs, was around 3.5, and the average revenue increase was about 111K. Now, of course, this is skewed because some companies have been able to get large contracts, but these are the average numbers. Around a third have been able to find new investment capital, and almost all of them have been able to export outside of their own countries, which shows that most of these startups have been quite successful. And here I want to show a few, not all, but a few of the startups that have won in Copernicus Incubation. Mobi GIS from Italy, for instance, predicts snow presence and the availability of water resources. So using Copernicus data to map all of these areas of water resources. The next one is DroneSAR from Ireland, using remote sensing data for rescue operations and mixing this with fully autonomous drones that actually go to the sites that have issues. Next one clicks. Doesn't seem to work. No. Next one, Livio, a German company who has been quite successful also at monitoring infrastructure networks for railways, for oil and gas, for electricity pipelines, to check if there is vegetation under infrastructure, so to do pipeline monitoring. This is a company that has also gathered quite a sizable amount of investment. Unisphere, which has developed mission simulation software linked with remote sensing data to operate high altitude pseudo satellites, also from an ISA-BIC. So usually around 30% of our applicants come from ISA-BICs. A UK company doing monitoring of infrastructure as well, but of ground subsidence, so to see where the ground shifts and moves to detect damage to critical infrastructure. Eodin from France, which is creating a kind of navigation tool, tracking the ocean surface currents to help optimize journey and fuel consumption for ships. Colombo Sky, which monitors water quality, for instance, for aquaculture and for finding harmful water threats. This is a company from Italy. Ticinum, which we will hear in 5 minutes with their Saturnalia service. I'm sure Daniele will explain all about it, so I won't speak much about this one. And for instance, Viridian Raven, which uses Sentinel data to predict outbreak of bark beetles. So they look at the forest, they look at trees, and they can they use an algorithm to detect where an outbreak of beetles might occur that might damage the ecosystem. And this was from the Netherlands. We have a variety of communication channels. You can sign up to our newsletter or to our Twitter. We will publish the deadlines. We will publish success stories. We will publish a variety of funding opportunities from different ESA tenders or Copernicus tenders or commission activities. So it's quite interesting to follow these channels. And that was it. So thank you, everyone.
Okay, and thank you, Nicolas, for giving us a broad information on Copernicus and Copernicus incubation and how to apply in the different cases. But I would suggest that we now listen to Daniel, who is actually a winner from the Copernicus incubation, and he can tell us all about his journey and how he started as the founder of Saturnalia. So please go.
Thank you, Luisa, and good afternoon, everyone. I am Daniele De Vecchi, CTO at Ticino Aerospace, and I'd like to introduce our service, that is Saturnalia. So, once the slide moves. So, as many of you know, wine is a beverage, but fine wine is also an investment where prices are strongly linked with quality, especially for fine wines. But how is quality measured? Well, Robert Parker in the 80s introduced a 100-point rating system, which is now a standard scale used by critics to rate wine. But these figures impact significantly the trade prices of each wine, yet they are assigned based on the professional opinion of tasters. But as mentioned in the last report by Livex on Bordeaux 2018, the last vintage, Robert Parker used to represent a guideline for the Bordeaux area, but since his retirement in 2013, no one has succeeded to fill this gap. And this means that there is a lack of a dominant figure, and that this can undermine the guarantee for quality. So there is no one that is actually used as a benchmark to measure the quality for these wines. So that's why, to solve this problem, our proposal is to shift from a subjective to an objective evaluation of wine quality, and that's why we introduced Saturnalia. That is basically a way to, our service automatically collects, aggregates, and processes the data over vineyards all over the world to make these quality indicators available to whoever is interested. Well, while it's innovative because it builds on the continuous monitoring of vineyards from satellite and from weather stations. We mainly use a combination of Sentinel-2 and Landsat data, which is called HLS. And all our measures are based on data. So all our quality measures can be are independent. And more advantages of our services are, for example, the timing, because our scores are released soon after the harvest, which is in the Northern Hemisphere is usually around September to October, while the scores, especially in the fine wine area of Bordeaux, are released in April or also later. The service is scalable, so scalability is very important because thanks to the satellite coverage, we can monitor several areas of the world at the same time, such as Burgundy, Barolo, Montalcino, and so on and so forth. We can scale, we can work at different scales, so we can monitor a large area like Burgundy, or we can also monitor single parcels like very small vineyards. And thanks to machine learning, which is at the core of our algorithm, the algorithm will improve vintage after vintage, the more data we accumulate. So the main outcome of the service is a platform where everyone which is interested can connect and select for a producer or variety and check the maps of the area of interest, understand better what are the scores for the vintage who is interested with, and also check for each single parcel what is the behavior for the specific vintage. But moreover, we are also working on a weather station that is designed by us. Why? Because we have a patent that is on a combination of battery supercapacitors and solar panels, which guarantees a longer life and low maintenance. And we are also including sensors that are low maintenance. So our main goal is to avoid the burden for wine growers to clean the sensors and change the weather station every 2 years, which is also very expensive. So as I mentioned before, our main sources of data are two: the HLS data, which are processed and released by NASA, but which include a large part of Sentinel-2 data. And this is very important because with this combination, we can increase the revisit time, which is very good for Sentinel-2. You know that it's around, in average, 3 days, but in this way, we increase even more the revisit time. And we can also go back in time thanks to the Landsat 8 data. So for us, it was a key to have a combination of the two sources of data. And because Sentinel-2 is guaranteed for 20 years, this gives us a very good horizon for the service in the future. And as long as our weather station is still a prototype, we are building on data from public weather stations available online. Well, this is just as most of you are technical guys, entrepreneurs, and startuppers. I just wanted to briefly introduce what is the data flow that we have. So our system ingests the data from the HLS database, but also from the weather stations. We fuse the data thanks to our data fusion core, and then we process the data thanks to the machine learning core, comparing the last vintage with the historic performances of the same producer in the years before. So that's how we come up with our performance score. Just a brief introduction of the market of fine wine and our competitors that maybe will be one of you in the future. Let's hope not. The market is huge. Currently, the global market value of wine is $302 billion, but of course, this is covering everything. If you look instead to the secondary market value, so the investment part, it's around $5 billion, which is still a lot if you think about it. And for example, investors handle portfolios of around more or less $100 million. So it's they handle very big portfolios. And looking at the extension, so we have worldwide 7.6 million hectares of vineyards, not just in Europe, but also in California, South Africa, and so on and so forth. About the competitors, so we don't have a direct competitor for all the services that we, let's say, produce since from our performance score, but we identified competitors for 3 main topics, and let's say the precision viticulture, the grape quality assessment and wine quality assessment, and the weather stations. For the precision viticulture and agriculture in general, you know that it's a very hot and crowded topic. So if you want to focus on precision viticulture and smart agriculture, you have to distinguish yourself from the others. While on the wine quality side, our competitors are mostly wine critics, even though we have completely different approach on how we provide our assessment on wines. Of course, ours is based on data, while theirs is based on the experience. Speaking of the weather station, of course, the application is not just limited to monitoring the grape growers, but it can be extended to other industries as well. And one of the main challenges here is that competitors have a stable positioning, because mainly they have products since, I don't know, 10 years in the market, but they are usually with old technical features. Well, I just want to introduce the team, a few things about ourselves. Teaching Aerospace is a spin-off company from the University of Pavia, and we have a strong experience in Earth observation image analysis, data fusion, and deep learning, but also in hardware development. The company started in 2013, so we managed to enter the Copernicus Incubation just before the deadline. And along with the 5 original members that are listed here, so we are mainly engineers, but we knew that this was not enough. Let me just go back one slide. So we range from professor in Earth observation to developers and remote sensing specialists, but we also included in our team 2 wine consultants that have a strong experience in the industry and help us a lot in mostly on the technical, but also on the business side, because they knew the market and they knew how to approach it. So we have Gianpaolo and Nicola Parisi as our consultants, but we also, since a couple of months, we also added a new team member, which is Matteo Alais. It's a pricing advisor, and I think it's a key figure in a startup to know how to value your work and how to price it properly for the customers. Well, just regarding the funding, as this was part of the discussion in today's presentations, I just wanted to mention that we managed to get 2 different fundings, one from the European Space Agency, thanks to the Kickstart activity program. We got it in December 2017, and it lasted 6 months, and it's a co-funding of 75%, if I remember correctly. And we also mentioned, as I mentioned before, we managed to enter the Copernicus Incubation program last year in October, and it's going to finish in 2 days. And of course, the money coming from these 2 projects, these 2 sources helped us a lot in developing the idea and mostly in refining the business side. And if you have any questions or curiosities on the funding side, on the technical side, just feel free to ask. And also, just adding a note to the funding side, as it's not easier as just putting it in a slide, we also applied 3 times to the H2020 phase 1 SME proposal, but we didn't manage to get that. So it's not that easy to get funding, but you should try different ways. Thank you, Luisa, for the time.
Okay, it's my pleasure, and thank you for having a really interesting presentation. I would like to ask the audience if you have any questions. At your right, you have a panel with a field questions. So please write your questions, and then we can allocate it to the person that has the most experience in. And meanwhile, I have some questions. So let me first go to Daniele. So you have mentioned that you use different sources of data.
Yeah.
You have mentioned Copernicus, but as well data from NASA. So
Yes.
I hear here a mixture of public and private organizations. So it would be possible to actually combine different sources?
Yeah, it's possible. Actually, the data from Landsat is as open as the Sentinel-2, so there is no problem on the license side. The thing is that from the technical point of view, the data are similar but not equal, because they have different sensors, as maybe Olivier can explain better than me. But the team there managed to combine the 2 sources together, and this mainly helps in increasing their visit time. So if you're not lucky and maybe one day the Sentinel-2 data is very cloudy on the specific vineyard, maybe the day after there is a Landsat 8 data and you can use the data as well. So for us, it was a key to fill the gaps.
Okay, yeah, okay. So it's actually a fact of being secure about your data that you receive.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
And Landsat
Okay,
data, just to make a few precision, Landsat data are also available mainly on the different jazz.
yes, okay, thank you. Then I also have a question for Nicolas. So you have mentioned Copernicus Incubation, and within 1 month there is another round for new startups to apply. Do you have any tips and tricks for them to succeed? Because apparently, if I have received your analytics correctly, there are many applications, but not that many places are.
Yeah, so every round is different, and it's also important to know that even though we can only select 20 per year, in some rounds we might have 50 applications, out of which we select 8, and sometimes there are rounds where we have 25 or 30 applications. So the aspect of competition is also quite different. But as a tip and a trick is, for instance, in the application templates that we have to fill in your proposal, the questions are organized they're numbered. So there are different sections in the questions, and it's important to answer these questions, or at least to structure your answers in the same way as these questions are posed. The reason is that the experts that evaluate your proposal are doing this with scorecards that have the different points aligned with the questions that we ask. So if we ask for 4 questions and the answer is a story where everything is mixed, it becomes unclear sometimes to see where the different answers are. So that's one tip I can give. Mm-hmm. And for the ones that are admitted to the live interviews, for instance, what's also important is audio quality. So I mean, we do a testing on the day before to test if the video and audio quality is sufficient, but it's quite important to be able to articulate in a clear fashion to the expert panel, because you only have 3 minutes to present. And also that the expert panel receives explicit instructions to view this as if they were investors with their own money. So the goal is really to convince them that if they invest this money in your startup, that they would get a return on this in the next 3 to 5 years. So don't focus too much on the research or the technology, but focus on how your technology is relevant to the business you are proposing. So I guess these are some tips I can give.
Okay, great. So to make it more general, so first they need to really pitch their idea and to be structural.
Yes, to follow the structure of the proposal templates we've designed, yeah. And to really view the entire thing as a business pitch. Okay,
great. I think we have received a question, and I assume this is appointed to you, Nicolas. So the question is, a team of 2 is required if no legal entity is registered yet. Is that correct?
Yes, so for the application, on the 25th of October, you can apply by being a team without a commercial entity. But we do advise that during the process of selection, because especially if you are designated a winner, we will give you around 3 months to sign the contract. And within that time, we do expect you to set up a commercial entity, because our contract can only be with an entity that is registered in a specific country. So at the time of application, you can still be just a team of individuals, but at the time of the announcement of the results. If you win, you need to register a commercial entity.
Okay, thank you. And I have a final question to the first speaker that we had today, Olivier. You gave us an overview about the different programs of Copernicus. And you mentioned that there is a program supported for acceleration program, but also the incubation program. But do startups first have to enroll for the acceleration to then be eligible to apply for the incubation, or can they go directly for the incubation program?
I'm not sure of the answer because I'm not managing those programs, unfortunately. But I assume first acceleration and then incubation.
Okay.
But they can go straight to incubation as well.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Great. So I don't have received any other questions from the audience. Then I would actually wrap it up. We have 4 minutes left, so we are still on time. After this session, my colleagues from Barcelona, Kim Global, will be sending a link towards every participant. Please fill this in so that we can improve the upcoming webinars as well. And besides that, this webinar will be uploaded to the website of Astropreneurs, which is astropreneurs.eu, where you can find all the other webinars, also webinars organized by my partners. Currently, we are busy with podcasts, which give you more an in-depth overview of how to have a successful startup, which is now in development and will be probably launched within a couple of weeks. So please keep an eye on the website, and furthermore, please note all the names of all these wonderful speakers with their expertise in their own segments. And thank you all, Olivier, Danielle, and Nicolas, for your time and participation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Okay, everybody, thank you for your time, and hopefully we meet into the next webinar. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye. Have a nice day.